It's time! And now, introducing your host, fighting out of Las Vegas, Nevada, by way of Boston, Massachusetts, presenting live,
the Bostonian versus the book. Follow the show on Twitter at Boston versus the book.
Here he is, Matt Perrault!
Enjoy the show, enjoy the show, enjoy the show, enjoy the show.
What's up, Brigade? How are you? Happy Thursday. Welcome into another episode of BvB presented by BetCris Arizona. Speaking of which, today, Adam Bjorn joining us here on the program. My name is Matt Perrault. We are live on YouTube and X at Boston versus the book, where we played on Sports Grid television each and every weeknight about 1 a.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. Pacific time, audio wherever you guys get your audio podcasts. Basketball, opening line. Let's talk about hoops. We're getting into March. Can you believe it's March, by the way? Where did the months go? We're already into the third month of the year. How in the world? But anyways, the race to Indianapolis is currently on. And I watched Florida last night and went, there's some interesting numbers in the futures market that I want to tackle coming up here at the start. Adam Bjorn will join us in about 15 minutes. He will jump in where I have no idea where he will be. Maybe Costa Rica like he was the last 2 weeks, or maybe he's going to be somewhere else. We will get to the futures market in the NBA. We'll take a look at the return of the NHL. We have a cup rematch tonight with Toronto and Florida. We've got, or I guess an Eastern Conference Finals rematch. We've got a interesting situation happening in the prediction market world, because every day there's a new story involving the prediction market people. We'll do that. And also we'll get into some bets for tonight in the NBA, the NHL, and a college basketball game. Purdue and Michigan State tonight in college hoops is a big one, but let's start the program talking college basketball in the futures market. I got 5 teams I want to talk about. There's more than 5, but 5 teams we'll talk about here during the opening line. It is the opening line, which is being presented by our friends at Huel, who is the best team in college basketball. And there are 5 teams I think we can take a look at in the futures market that would be good to get involved with. This being brought to you by our friends at Huel. They are with us until the end of the week. If you've not taken advantage of this offer, I would recommend doing so, because in March, this goes away. It's a 15% off offer for everything on BvB on Huel.com/BvB for new customers. We're talking about, they've got some cool new stuff. They've actually come out with some energy bars, and they've got a whole variety of both powdered and ready to drink shakes. You can keep yourself on your fitness goals, vegan, gluten-free, 2 huge things for me. Although I'm not vegan, but I am gluten-free. 27 vitamins and essential minerals. 40 grams of protein to keep you going here, keep you fueled. It is about keeping yourself not just on your fitness goals, but also, well, just being able to eat well. 40 grams of protein all in one shake and or ready to drink bottle. Check it out, Huel.com/BVB, promo code BVB for 15% off. So last night I'm watching and I'm going, okay, I faded Florida last night. Texas was 12-3 at home. And up to halftime, I thought my bet was pretty good. I thought I was in a good spot. And then Florida started to hit threes, and it was just wild. Like, Florida just started to knock down 3, knock down 3, knock down 3. And when Florida, I'm freezing a lot. Is that what you guys are saying? We're having some connection issues? I don't know. That's funny. I'm fine on my end. We're fine on Twitter. So I apologize. I don't know. I keep freezing. That might be, well, I will say this. StreamYard just rolled out a bunch of new stuff today, and I wonder if that might be causing some problems. So keep me abreast on that during the chat, guys, if we're having some issues, because I know I got an email this morning from StreamYard about all these new features. So sometimes that can cause problems. So, okay. People are seeing some better things. Maybe there was something in the beginning part of it that was causing some issues, but hopefully we're not going to have any issues. I see it on Instagram, we're fine. On Twitter, we're fine. YouTube looks to be fine. So appreciate you letting me know with that. Maybe it's just a connection issue where you guys might be currently at, but hopefully that rectifies itself for you. So I was watching Florida and I thought to myself, look, this is the team that I liked going into the season. I liked Florida a lot. I love their size. I like their coach. Excuse me. I like their guards. And there's been some like up and down with Florida this year. But that's the team last night in the second half against Texas. That's the team that I thought that could get to the Final Four. That's the team that I thought could cut down the nets in Final Four. So I don't know. I think it's really interesting to see how teams are rounding into form. And maybe for some of you who haven't paid all that close attention to what's happening in college basketball, now is a good time to lock in. Now is a good time to take a look at what's going on. And so here are the odds to win it all right now this morning at BetCris Arizona. What is interesting, and we will ask Adam Bjorn this question, why do they have Michigan as the shortest favorite to win the national championship, even after Duke beat Michigan? Michigan's the odds-on favorite to win it all. Duke number 2, Arizona number 3, Houston number 4, and Florida number 5. So let's take a look at all 5 of those teams. Because as we get to March, generally speaking, one of those teams most likely will win the national championship. And I'm not totally discounting Iowa State, Illinois, UConn, Purdue, even KU. If Peterson stays healthy and he goes on a run during the tournament, even they are worth a bet and worth a conversation as to what they might look like. So we've got 5. Let's look at the top 5, but that doesn't mean that there aren't some decent opportunities to jump in with double-digit type dogs who could wind up cutting down the nets in Indianapolis and winning it all. But let's start with Florida. They're 22-6 after last night. Their quad 1 wins. They're 9-5. Their best win on the year is a win at Vanderbilt, and they're basically 10-1 to win it all. That's to me, that's a lot of value. There's a lot of value on Florida. Net rating of 6. They're 9-5 in quad 1. They're 6-1 in quad 2. The only loss in a quad 2 situation was against Auburn, which is not a horrible loss. Auburn's a pretty good basketball team, losing 76-67 for them. The thing that kind of jumps out to me when I look at the resume for Florida, and it's similar to Houston, you look at their losses, they're 22-6 on the year. They've lost to Arizona. They lost to TCU. They lost to Duke. They lost to UConn. They lost to Missouri. I mean, Duke, UConn, Arizona, those are teams that could be in the Final Four. I'm not so sure about Missouri and TCU, but those 3 teams could be in the Final Four. So those aren't bad losses. The loss to even Auburn, not a bad loss, but I think it may be a little bit of a troubling sign, but the neutral loss early in the year to Arizona, nothing to shake a stick at. More on them in a second. TCU was early in the year. Duke was on the road. UConn was neutral. So, I mean, you've played some good caliber competition. You've lost a couple of those games, but nothing to be all that angry about if you're talking about where Florida's resume is. Number 2, Arizona, is really interesting to me. They're 26-2. They're 12-2 in quad 1 games. Their best win is at Houston. More on Houston here in just one second. And they're plus 444 to win it all at BetCris. Arizona's a funky team for me. I like Arizona a lot. I do. Net rating of 3, 12-2 in quad 1 games. They're 5-0 in quad 2 games. They lost to Texas Tech at home, which is arguably their worst loss of the year. And then they lost to Kansas on the road at Fog Allen. And there's nothing really all that damaging about losing to KU on the road. 13-2 in conference, 26-2 overall. They've got tremendous big man play. The Pete kid is awesome to watch. Their guard play is tremendous. They're coached extremely well. Arizona is a team you have to be respectful of and most likely have a ticket on at some point this year to win it all, just simply because they're that talented. I mean, that they just have, and the value is not great. I would say it's probably better off rolling it over, doing a money line rollover on Arizona, because 4-1 is not great return on in the futures market for Arizona. But if that number doesn't really excite you, can I interest you in Houston? They're 23-5. All 5 of their losses have come in quad 1 games. They have no bad losses. Their best win was at BYU, and they're 8.5-1 to win it all. That's some nice value there on a Houston team that is going to be a problem because of the style of play. They've lost to Tennessee, to Texas Tech, to Iowa State, to Arizona, and Kansas. Those teams, all those teams, could be Final Four teams. Tennessee, Texas Tech, BYU, Iowa State, Arizona, and KU all could be in Indianapolis. So I don't think, even though the number of the 5 losses has caused people to kind of recoil a bit and saying, well, wait a minute, they're 23-5, Matt. They're 11-4 in conference. Do you trust this version of Houston? Do they have enough offense? Will they hit their free throws? All questions we have seen with Kelvin Sampson's teams over the years when it comes to Houston and what they will do come March and come the tournament. But defensively, they are an absolute bear, as they always are. They have a bit more firepower than normal, and that 850, that's not bad. And you can shop around. There may be some books you find 10-1 with Houston to come in and win it all. But defense travels. What's great about Houston is that you don't have to worry about an off shooting night, because every game essentially is an off shooting night in most, for Houston. They rebound and play defense. They make your life difficult. They're physical. They are just a difficult matchup. They play games in the 30s, per half, and they're totally comfortable with a 62-60 final. Like, that's the way they want to play basketball. And most teams don't like playing basketball like that. And that's why Kelvin Sampson's so successful with Houston year in and year out. So, the Gators are 10-1. Arizona is 4-1. But Houston at 8.5-1, there's a lot of value there. There's a lot of value on that. There's a lot of value when you look at Houston and how and the draw and where they're going to go. Yeah, they don't look sound in offense. They don't need to, Brendan. That's the thing with Houston. They don't need to look sound on offense. I think Houston is a really tough matchup for anybody in college basketball rather, because they play like a football team. And on a quick turn, on a Thursday, Saturday setting, you play Thursday, you got to play them on Saturday. They are not fun. Now, the last 2 are very predictable, right? Number 3, Michigan. They're 26-2. They are 11-1 in quad 1 games. Their best win happened at Purdue. 3.5-1 to win it all. At BetCris, this is the odds-on favorite to win the national championship. And I'm excited to talk to Adam a bit about this, because they lost to Duke, and yet they have shorter odds than Duke. 11-1 in quad 1, 9-1 in quad 2. The loss to Wisconsin at home is not good. I will give you that. That is not a loss you want, but that was a 91-88 3-point at the buzzer shot for Wisconsin, and you just say, okay, it was a bad night for Michigan. The Duke loss was surprising to me, because that is now 9 consecutive losses that Michigan has suffered at the hands of Duke. And on a neutral court, I thought Michigan would win that game. I bet Michigan to win that game. Didn't happen. Duke won that game, and then Duke went on to give Notre Dame their worst home loss since 1898 with a 156 win in their last game. So Michigan I don't know if there's much value in betting Michigan to win it all. If you didn't get involved with Michigan earlier in the year, I'm not sure it's worth it to bet Michigan at 3.5 to 1. Again, they're the odds-on favorite at BetCris Arizona to win it all. And then Duke, 26-2. They're 11-2 in quad one games. Their best win is against Michigan, and yet their odds are longer than Michigan's to win it all. Plus 420 to win it all for Duke. And there are some of you in the chat that do not believe that John Shire can get it done with Duke. 14-1 in conference. The one loss to North Carolina, which is a game they probably should have won. If it wasn't for the run with the Tar Heels at the end of that game, they probably win that game. And they lost to Texas Tech on a neutral, which is not a bad loss at all for Duke, but taking care of the quad 2 games and, that 156 win against Notre Dame on the road stands out. That's a ridiculous final for what Duke did to Notre Dame in that win. I think when it comes to neutral courts, and that's why I thought Michigan would beat Duke, because Duke at Cameron, okay, I don't think Michigan's going to walk in there and beat Duke, but in Washington, D.C., I really was surprised. And given Duke's dominance over Michigan, even though I think that Michigan is a more complete basketball team than Duke, Boozer is a beast. Like, that kid just is a different type of player. And we have some incredible talent in college basketball right now, because this fab freshman club, this five freshman roster that we see for freshmen across the country, Arizona's got one, Kansas has one, BYU has one. You just go down the list. Like, there's so many teams that have dynamic young players who are 18, 19 years of age that could do some incredible things in March. Like, that's the thing about basketball. One player can jump on that kid's back, and he can lead you to a national championship. And these are all first round lottery pick type talented kids that, who's number one? Is it AJ? Is it Darren? Like, who's going to go top of the draft? Well, that's fine. You can make that argument all you want about either BYU or KU getting the top pick. It doesn't really matter because of the depth of how much talent is on different rosters. I didn't even mention Illinois. They seem to be the forgotten team here in college basketball. Nobody's talking much about the Illini and what they're capable of doing, but all they're doing is winning game after game after game. And so you've got that storyline. I think Iowa State is a problem for anybody because of their experience. They're one of the older teams in college basketball, but they've got guard play. They have the best three-point shooter in college basketball, and they're gritty. They're just tough. I think Iowa State's a team you have to pay attention to as to what they might look like. So this is going to be a phenomenal tournament. Everyone gets so caught up in the top seeds, right? Who's going to be the number one seed? But we're talking, in all 4 regions, there's going to be top 4 seeds that are going to be dangerous, that are going to be problematic. And they may have, like a KU, they may have a player that if that player doesn't go, it changes everything. And KU is a good team even without Peterson. But with Peterson, they're a championship caliber team. And as long as he can figure out whatever the heck has gone on this year with him and cramps and playing or not playing, all that stuff, super fun to watch. Look, Michigan State plays Purdue tonight-ish. It's a great point. I mean, Michigan State is a team. It's Izzo, right? Izzo is March. And he'll go tonight against Purdue on the road, and we'll see what they look like here tonight. I got a bet on that game a little bit later on that we'll talk about. But, it's hard not to like Michigan State. It's hard not to look at them and see how they go. So, look, Justin's making a joke about Miami, but Miami, okay, we'll find out how good Miami is. They haven't lost yet. They've won every game on their schedule. Their schedule is not that difficult, but who and when and why and where, we'll see. I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to happen in that game. I'm looking forward to, whoever, when Miami plays in the first round of the tournament, who they're matched up with. And are they a Cinderella? Are they Drake? Are they, Loyola Chicago? Are they one of these teams that we just talk about and kind of downplay them because of their opponents? But in reality, they're really good. March is right around the corner. Let's continue talking about the NCAA tournaments, the odds at BetCris Arizona, and where in the world is our guy, Adam Bjorn? My friend, I don't recognize the backdrop. I think you're somewhere new. Where are you?
No, I'm in Costa Rica. I'm at home. Blank canvas behind me. I need to get something done with that. But yeah, still in Costa Rica. Heading out on the weekend to no, not this week. Next week. Anyway, right now in Costa Rica, and I am hitting the road soon.
All right, let's keep talking some college basketball because I put up the odds from you guys at BetCris. You guys have Michigan as the odds-on favorite, even though Michigan lost head-to-head up against Duke. Is there money on Michigan that you guys have? Have someone taken Michigan heavy in the futures market? I mean, this is not just a small margin. It's almost $1 difference between Michigan and Duke for you guys at BetCris Arizona.
Yeah, I think I'd mentioned a few weeks ago, huge position. Michigan's the worst loser for the house. It looks like their odds literally didn't change off that game the other day.
Wow.
Duke shortened up a little bit to bring it a bit closer. They're still a winner, small loser on the master chart. But yeah, it's a significant difference between the two. But looking at the game, Duke completely out-rebounded Michigan. The shooting percentage was just a couple of shots in Duke's favor. But right now, I mean, listen, both of these are terrible odds. I just had to have a quick look at what the hold is. We're currently holding like 40% juice in the entire market. So this will tighten up once it gets a little bit closer and the schedule comes out. But yeah, just looking at there's 40% house edge on this, which is pretty much what we try and do in a golf tournament each week. There's really not looking at any big prices. Arizona's pretty short now. They're a really good winner. I did think that maybe getting closer, I might do some big odds on them just to sort of draw in some customers, whatnot. But yeah, it's Michigan are the worst results. I didn't expect them to get pushed too hard.
Can you explain to the layman a bit about risk management, about how you take these future bets all year long and how that impacts? Because it's a sprint, really, right? We play all these college basketball games and we get to the tournament and it turns into a sprint. That how that liability factors into the price you put up?
Yeah, so for me, for futures, you write so much. Our future, whatever the position is on the overall futures, you will probably have a bigger position on the final game than all of the futures put together. So for me, I've always been super aggressive. Never really understood why, companies play tight on the futures, because just these two teams, I am sure that if you really want to bet Duke or Michigan or Arizona, take your money at the start of the tournament, bet them game one, bet them game two, whatnot, or even just wait for that opportunity. Maybe, not round one, but round two or round three, they might be down by 5 or 6 points and their money line's better and things like that. There's so many other ways to bet this stuff than put your money up front now. The only thing I'm betting on futures in these spots, and even then in the March Madness, it's kind of not worth as much, is if you're finding someone at 50s or 60s that you're really wanting to take a shot at, that's harder to kind of do the all-up thing. But even in that spot, there's probably a chance that they're not even value in that spot as well.
What's the difference between the action that you take, say, like today or up to today, versus once we get to the conference tournament time and people start to pay attention? How much does it change?
Probably 5 to 10x.
Wow.
People now just chipping away, picking a few little spots. People just, seeing one game happen and get on a roll and think, oh, I've got to bet them now. They're not putting the math and the timelines and putting that money up now, and you've got many other opportunities to invest it between now and even, tournament time. You've still got another 3.5 weeks, I guess. So, yeah, I mean, these things, I'm just like, just let them bet. Yes, looking at the chart right now, it's about 9% of the volume is master money.
Okay.
And again, these could be people betting because someone else has offered a yes, no, and they're just arbing it. But really, no one's really wanting to put up their money for this at this point in time for this much in advance, especially short prices.
Do you feel like because of the parity in college basketball that also might limit people wanting to get involved because it could be one of those crazy tournaments where big teams get knocked out early?
Yeah, I mean, looking at this, I'm still surprised that there's that much volume on this overall book, but that's just what happens every year. People tip into it, whether it's early season and then they come out of the new year and sort of it's getting closer, they're putting up their money for as much. But Michigan did start 16, 17 to 1. While I did look at, there is some significant bets at 4 and 5 to 1. But there is some people on it, 14s, 15s, 16s. So if you're on in that spot, great value. You got on early, your money's in a good spot. But yeah, it's tough to get too involved in these things unless you really feel like there's definite shortening coming up. That the market's just completely misread a team.
Lights Out wants to know, is there anybody that you're seeing long shots? Any favorable long shot that the Masters are taking with 10 to 1, 15 to 1, 20 to 1 prices?
So I saw a lot of money on Purdue at shorter prices. Now they're out to 20s, but there was some master money on them at like mid-teens.
Wow.
So those kind of spots that's where I look at it. If a professional and someone that I really respect, and it happens college football more so than college basketball, if they come in at a certain time and it was based on an injury or it was based on a run, and then you look at it and a team's just, they've had a key player out or something's happened of that nature and they're blown a little in the price, then if they're getting all those players back, then maybe there's something there to look at where you can get on at 25s or 30s when people that really know what they're doing have gotten on at mid-teens and then take that ride with them kind of thing. So that was one that stood out. There's people have taken some shots at Indiana. Looks like they've blown out the gate a bit since then. I think they're over 400s, but there's monies at 60s and 70s. But yeah, on the master chart, Connecticut looks like another one. Bunch of money on them. The master money is at, sort of mid-teens to 20s, and they're similar price right now still.
Yeah, I could see UConn after what happened last time with St. John's too. Big win for UConn against the Johnnies on that. Anything of note tonight for Michigan State against Purdue? You mentioned the people are kind of liking Purdue, but there's a big game tonight for Purdue in the Big Ten. Any significant movement so far in that game?
Let me look at this one. So right now, see what it opened up. It opened up around 5.5. Looks like it's gone to 7.5, back to a solid 7. We're about 67% of the money on Purdue. However, about 74% of the master money's on Michigan State there. Again, varies, but +8, +7.5, they jumped in pretty hard.
What about the total? It's been creeping up kind of all day. Is that significant money coming in on the over, or is it just a couple of people betting on the over?
Yeah, not significant. It looks like it opened 141. We're currently leaning under 142.5. It's pretty well balanced money, but not a lot there.
Okay, yeah, I think there's pace in that game. I like the over in that game coming up here tonight between those two teams. So I was in Florida over the weekend, and the weather was nice for the most part, but it was not like New England where it's 5 feet of snow on the ground and New York is buried and Philadelphia is buried. So everyone wants to talk Masters. Everyone wants to get to the first big golf tournament of the year. When do you guys start to see Masters money show up? Is it bet year round, or does it, we get to February, we get to March and we start seeing the advertisements pop up for the Masters? Do folks start to get involved?
Yeah. So I've got 2 books. So the first book, which was up in December, Brooks Koepka was bet super, super heavy by Masters. I guess once he made his announcement and was moving across, they jumped all over him. He's obviously had a good record there. And then Matt Fitzpatrick was bet pretty hard. But in the current book that we have, Scotty Scheffler's, very short price favorite. Hideki Matsuyama has gotten some action. Patrick Reed got a ton of action, obviously a previous winner.
Wow.
But what generally happens is we put this thing up, and I know every weekend someone's going to be making a run. So we're going to start seeing tickles on prices, which, again, for me, will write 10, 15x the week of the Masters versus these things. So I don't mind taking mid 6, 7-figure kind of position because I think, that week we'll get into it anyway. A couple of them, Chris Gotterup's had a couple of wins already this year. Yep. However, he was just added to the list recently, so we dodged all the early prices on that. I just noticed Bridgman's not on the list, so we didn't get hacked, which the Genesis and the Masters has always been two tournaments that they feel like the courses run very similar. So you often watch that Riviera tournament and make sure you're sort of keeping people tight who's running well that week. And then, but most of these prices that are taken previously end up blowing out. Justin Rose is another huge exposure, which again, he had to, run a few weeks ago. But that's generally what the Masters and these events look like early on. Even Siwoo Kim, who I know is sort of gone all right so far this year, he's got some money as well. But it's pretty predictable. I don't get too concerned with the exposure we have at this point because, again, week of the Masters, this is the one that you write the most action on over the course of any event for the year.
What happens to the handle if Tiger plays?
So ours will go up because I lay Tiger. I mean, one of my worst results ever when he come back and won that one. God, I don't even know what year it was now. 6-7 years ago.
98, whatever it was. Yeah.
No, when he won 2017 or something, when he was done 18, and dusted. 18, yeah. So that year, lost 7 figures on that. Was a bad result. However, ended up winning 7 on the Open, 7 on the, it ended up a really good year. But yeah, people still bet it, and I'll put it up at as big as odds as I can put it up. I'll have as big as exposure as you can have on these things if he shows up, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah. The chat is asking the same question, but for the World Cup. When does World Cup money start to show up? Have you guys already seen it?
World Cup money's already showing up. We're getting some big requests for big prices that people are looking for. But yeah, it's already started to show up on, I think I looked at it. We had 50 or 60 added markets, top goal scorers, make the quarterfinals, make the finals, all kinds of things. But yeah, those starting to see action there.
To hoist the tournament, is host the trophy? Is that the way we're going to be wording this? As to, it's not who wins, it's who hoists the trophy.
I believe we just have odds to win the World Cup. We don't, no hoisting in that part of the world. But looking at it, this has been up for a couple of years. Money's been trickling in as the fields become more final. We're getting more and more. Right now, France is our biggest exposure. No, USA is our biggest exposure. France is the biggest real contender exposure. But I know USA, I think it was maybe 2 World Cups ago or whatnot. I think I had them for like an $8 to $10 million loser. We were like double the market odds of everybody else. It was just like, come and get it. If you win it, congratulations to you.
Well, the Olympic hockey men's and women's gold medal, I think it's going to spur people to bet USA even more now in the World Cup. So I think you put up as big of a price as you want, and people are still going to take it. It's kind of like a donation. They're going to bet Team USA like crazy coming up on that.
And I think we're currently at like 75 to 1 or something like that. I think the biggest price we laid was hundreds, but yeah, they're still coming.
They will. Once that thing really kicks off, I think you're going to see a ton of action. People are going to bet USA just based on principle to come in, even though we have no shot at winning that thing. So yesterday, there was some news that came out of Arizona that I kind of want to talk about, because we saw Arizona came in as the number 5 highest grossing sports betting state in 2025. So clearly there's a gigantic, robust market in Arizona. And now there is a thought with the new budget in Arizona to potentially change the tax rate up to as high as 45%. The bad part of this story is that it seems like the state doesn't know the difference between revenue and handle. And that's really got to be, for a guy who's on your side of the counter, that's got to be frustrating. Is it not, that they can't figure out the difference between the two?
Well, tell me you know nothing about the industry without telling me you know nothing. Yeah, originally it came out and they were saying that it was going to be on the GGR, and then it was confirmed that no, they were actually talking about 45% on handle. Well, Tennessee went to 1.85% and pretty much made it untenable to operate there. It's unfortunate that these states just think sports betting is the way to come tackle it. They are at 10%, which I think is probably low. They could get away with 15% on raising that, but even their 45% on GGR, it really only affected DraftKings, FanDuel, and I think BetMGM. But what happens if I'm doing my volume, I'm hitting like 70 million, and it gets to like the 25th of the month, and I'm up and I'm going, I don't want to pay 45%. I just want to keep it at my 10. Do I just like shut the doors and say no bets for the next 5 days to save me how many millions in taxes and stuff like that? Like
Wow.
It's just insane how they come up with these numbers. They just arbitrarily throw things out. I know we've got Michigan talking about charging per bet like Illinois. Don't they realize that they're getting crushed by prediction markets right now, and they're really losing market share? All they're really doing is pumping up the gray and black markets as well. It's just going to become untenable, and then you just get people that go, screw it, I'm going to go gray. I'm going to offer super competitive markets. And, with crypto and cards and all these other things, it's not hard to move money in and out of different places. So, it's, as I said, it's unfortunate. Arizona were very aggressive on going after operators, sending letters saying, if you do predictions, you're going to lose your license. They stripped Underdog, but they haven't touched FanDuel or DraftKings because they're the big fat boys paying the big bills. So again, it's kind of really showing that they don't have much backbone, and it's a lot of huff and puff, which is the unfortunate thing.
Is it frustrating that they don't, and this is not just an Arizona thing, but it's also whether it be Illinois, Ohio, whatever, that they don't tend to ask the right people the right questions? It feels like they talk about it amongst themselves, come up with a number, go public, and then you guys in the industry have to correct them when what they're asking for is ridiculous.
Yeah, and I've learned that it's not the regulators, so I'm not here to go on after the regulators. Okay. It's really the legislators that have a hell of a lot less knowledge of what they're overseeing than what the regulators do. I don't even know if they go to the regulators and say, hey, we're thinking of doing this. And then they should be able to say, well, we got feedback. There's that big gap between the people that are paying the taxes, the people that are collecting the taxes, and then even the regulators in between that have got to kind of govern this thing. So, it's tough. And Arizona have been talking about iCasino and regulating and legalizing that for probably over a year now as well. So if they really wanted to be competitive to their big Nevada neighbor and bring iGaming to people's phones and that, while I'm not a big supporter of it because I know what it's going to ultimately do to a lot of people, right. That's where they should be tackling it rather than trying to go after the sports that just doesn't have any kind of margin on it.
And ultimately, it gets passed down to the consumer, does it not? I mean, we start raising these taxes, you guys have to adjust price, and thus the prices get to be not where you want them to be. And like what you talk about, driving people to the gray and the black market, those folks who are price sensitive start saying, well, wait a minute, Adam, you're minus 125 on all these sides and totals. I want to pay 110. I'm going to go somewhere else. So it's counterintuitive to actually growing the market, is it not?
Well, it is. And I know some places in Tennessee do that. They offer minus 115 both sides just to overcome that, And the other aspect of it is there's been fights to get rid of this federal excise tax, which is 1/4% on handle, forever and ever. And there's been talk of that actually happening. And now the states are kind of trying to bring in something that sort of is even worse than that excise tax has been trying to get rid of. If they got rid of the excise tax and they keep the tax at a fair thing, they can compete with anyone on the planet. They can, sell this thing of trying to regulate the unregulated. But, these states just keep making it harder and harder on operators. And they're really just building up where FanDuel, DraftKings, Caesars, MGM are really the only ones going to be able to participate, which then takes away the innovation of, us and Circa and some of those ones that are trying to be more aggressive. on a super, super small margin product.
Right, 10% margin product, and you're asking for 45% here, potentially for anyone over $75 million in monthly revenue. They want 45% in the state of Arizona, which is, I mean, we stop and think about it and go, wait, what? Not workable. And I look, if people stop operating in these states, I think that's ultimately, I think what these companies have to ask themselves, is it worth it to keep operating if you're going to pay that type of tax rate in these states? And that's not what you want. You want more competition, not less. I mean, I hate the fact that Florida and New Hampshire are monopolies, and it's, that those, you don't want that. You don't want one or two operators. You want multiple operators. And I'm not sure the states really care about that, though, unfortunately.
No, and then they pump out these numbers like, if they do this, it's $4 billion in tax revenue. Yeah, but you've just completely destroyed an industry that's now unsustainable, and all that money, or whatever you think that money is now going to prediction markets, offshore, the underground bookies again, which gives no player protection, which we saw that with the sweeps, with some of these Fliff and some of those that just stopped paying people. Was just like the offshore business within the US borders, because there was no oversight. That's the whole point of regulating things within reason, is to protect the consumer. And a lot of these don't seem to be looking at that aspect.
Yeah. Get you out of here on this. There's a game tonight. The Spurs are playing the Nets. I know it's not that big of an interesting game, but they've won 10 straight games. Are people taking the Spurs? Are you seeing any future market play yet on San Antonio, and anything on tonight? It's a big number. It's 13.5, but it's come down to 12.5 at you guys. Are the pros taking the Nets plus the points tonight?
They are. They took 14, 13.5, and they've even taken some 12.5. 100% of the money, master money's on the Nets. The other side of the book's fairly well balanced. As for futures, there wasn't a lot on it. I think the traders have been able to sort of stay ahead of that thing. And then again, it's a bit like the other futures. It's February. You're going to get paid out in June. What kind of odds do you need to catch it right now to get in? They are a loser for us. I think they're around 7-1 right now. There's been prices as big as 50s taken.
Wow.
If I quickly look on this, sort of October, November last year, master money up until sort of December, you were still getting mid-30s, 40s. But I think we've caught the price pretty well as it's come in, and they've gone on this run.
Yeah, I got a 15-1 ticket on them, so we'll see what happens. Adam, thank you for the time. We'll catch up next week, all right?
All right, cheers. Thanks, Matt.
Adam Bjorn joining us here on the Bostonian versus the book. Great to get him on the program, as always. And look, just to put a little bow tie on the Arizona conversation, because we've talked, obviously, on this program quite a bit about taxes and what these operators are looking to deal with it. A lot of these states are going to have to ask themselves about the industries that they want, because I'm okay with taxing vices. I am, up to a point where they can operate, but you can't keep on changing what these operators agreed to. Like, you can't keep changing the law because you're trying to make up for a shortfall in other areas. And so a state like Arizona, according to the governor, the reason why this is being changed from 10% to 45% on the big operators is because of the big, beautiful bill. And it's the tax burden is being shifted more heavily to the states to generate revenue to pay for things that the federal government used to pay for. Well, you made an arrangement with these operators when you legalized that. They came in, they paid your licenses, they went through all of your hoops to get licensed to operate in your state, and they agreed to a tax rate of 10%. And now you're going to change that to 45%. And like Adam said, if BetCris is having a great month in Arizona and they're going to go over 75 million in handle, well, if they're at $74.5 million, it's 10% for the first $74,999,999. And the second you hit 75 million, it kicks onto a 45% tax rate. That's a 35% increase for $1. So what do you do if you're approaching that number? Do you throw the brakes up? Do you just stop taking bets? Do you change all your odds so nobody wants to bet with you? It's counterintuitive. It's not what you want out of a healthy industry in your state. And so, I made the joke at the beginning, but it is true. They thought it was handle for a while. It wasn't gross gaming revenue. It was handle that they initially were going to do. So it's there's a lot of things going on in states where it's embarrassing. Like you're trying to come in and apply tax principles on these industries that you clearly don't have a firm grasp as to how they do business, and they are operating in your state. So the question is to Arizona is, do you want these operators? And as I mentioned, number 5 in gross revenue, top grossing revenue sports betting, top grossing sports betting states in America: New York, Illinois, New Jersey, Ohio, and Arizona. They're number 5. They're bigger than Pennsylvania. They're bigger than Massachusetts. They're bigger than Virginia. This is a very big gambling state because people from Nevada will come down to Arizona, and people in Arizona like to bet on sports. There's a lot of retirees. There's a lot of money in the state of Arizona. It's a very healthy market. You want it to be legalized. You want Phoenix to be legal, not illegal. But you can't keep changing the rules on these operators and trying to make up shortfalls on the backs of sports gambling and think it's going to work. It just doesn't work. I don't know. It's a frustrating thing, I think, for a lot of people in the industry to watch what's going on around the country and all these states just literally pulling numbers out of thin air and saying 45%. Like, where does that number come from? Like, who came up with that number? In what committee did that number get approved? It's nuts. Talk about what happened last night. A couple of major games in college basketball. What happened last night? My gosh. If you were watching the UConn game, did you see what happened to St. John's? St. John's went 17 and a half minutes without hitting a field goal. They missed 24 consecutive shots. 24 straight shots. I mean, that's just one of those games where you're like, you want to move on as fast as possible. You can't believe how badly you played. You can't believe what happened to you. You just go, okay. Like, UConn lost to St. John's earlier this year. That's a top 15 team. We haven't seen a team shoot that poorly over the last 8 years. A ranked team missing that many shots in a row, 24 field goal attempts, all missed by St. John's. They did not hit a field goal over the last 17 and a half minutes of the second half in a complete blowout victory for UConn, for a team that has needed it after the loss to Creighton at home. They needed to turn things around in back-to-back wins for UConn. So they have righted the ship. But for St. John's and Rick Pitino, yikes. That's a team, including I liked them too going into the season. The Big East, I wouldn't be tying my boat to any Big East team making a run. Like, the Big East is not great at the moment. In the NBA last night, the Denver Nuggets smacked the Boston Celtics. That hot streak is over for Boston after running through the Lakers and the Suns. Not so much with the Denver Nuggets, who are the number 2 team in most markets to win it all behind the OKC Thunder. Great performance by Jokic. Boston could not hit the broadside of a barn in the second half. They just seemingly ran out of gas in that second half against Denver. I thought the game would be pretty high scoring in the second half. Boston had a ton of looks. They just couldn't get anything to go down, and a big double-digit win for Denver last night, and their best win of the season. The people have talked about the Denver Nuggets schedule a bit, that they haven't beaten anybody of note, but they beat up the Celtics last night. It was pretty impressive. The Pistons took down the Thunder. Speaking of them, 124-116. They won, they covered, but the top 6 scorers for the Thunder did not play in that game. So take that for what it is. Pistons win, but OKC was woefully undermanned, and yet they only lost by 8 points to the Pistons last night. If you were somebody contemplating a Cavalier future, James Harden has a right hand shooting hand thumb fracture. That is tough. Okay. That is tough. James Harden coming over from the Clippers has been awesome with the Cavaliers, and having him not available. He didn't play last night. He sat against the Bucks. How long will he be out? That's a big question. And you don't want to mess around with something like that, just given the fact that it is an injury that can lead to larger issues. and you've just made that big trade for James Harden, and clearly it had worked up to this point. But James Harden is not going to be on the floor for the Cavaliers over the next couple of days, and we'll see what happens. Yeah, he is a lefty. Thank you, Adam. He is a lefty. Thank you. Non-shooting hand. Thank you. Forgot about that. He's a lefty. But still, he didn't play yesterday. Non-displaced fracture of his right hand. He's a lefty. Thank you for that. I forgot about that. So for his left shooting hand. So still, I mean, I'm not so sure I'm running to buy. I mean, I'm not doing that anyway. I mean, I'm not buying a Cavalier ticket regardless, but an injury to Harden would definitely keep me away from buying a Cavaliers future because I don't buy it. News of the industry is wild today. So remember, I've told you guys that we are really not talking enough about the corruption and the things happening in the prediction marketplace, that there are things happening that are really unseemly and really nasty. Well, there are some chilling details coming out about what might be going on in this country based upon what is happening in other parts of the world, namely in Israel, where there is a report coming out that, look, this article is written from a skew point of view. Okay, I'm not saying that this isn't a biased point, but it doesn't mean that it's not true. So when we saw the new CFTC head, Mike Seelig, go in front of Congress, there were several people that were questioning about, are you allowing these prediction markets to incentivize violence? Are we allowing people on the inside that are aware of war, that are aware of different military strikes, to come in and make money in prediction markets? Well, there's been a lot of talk about what happened with Venezuela and the United States and what happened on certain prediction markets in America and insider information, knowing who was going to get hit and when. Well, in Israel, a report has come out that there are soldiers who are profiting from the insider information about what the military in Israel was going to do in Gaza, making up to $150,000 in a single year, with details tied directly to life and death events in Gaza that were then turned into a source of financial gain. Their bets were placed on Polymarket, which is not legal in the US, by the way, where a platform where users gamble on future events by buying yes or no contracts that pay out only if the predicted outcome occurs. In this case, military actions in Gaza became a marketplace for speculation and profit. If you think that that's not happening in America, you are asleep at the wheel. Straight up. You are asleep at the wheel. This is not what we should be allowing. This was never what you're never supposed to be able to bet on war. That is in the CFTC's guidelines for prediction markets. But what constitutes war is a very slippery conversation, because there is all this debate about, well, the U.S. didn't go to war with Venezuela. The U.S. just went in and invaded and took down the leader of Venezuela. Well, what is a military action? What is war? And what is simply just a police action? So these things are up in prediction marketplaces in America, and we're not clear as to what is legal and what is not, because the CFTC has no interest in doing their job. And so they're going to take bets on all sorts of crazy things. And we are literally setting up our young people, military people, those that have access to information that the general public does not have. And we're talking about a career military kid who's 22 years old, who might not be making a ton of money in the military. If he's given orders and he knows ahead of time that tomorrow he's going in to do something, and he can go on Polymarket US or another prediction market and go ahead and place a wager on that thing to happen, and he knows it's going to happen. Well, how are we okay with that? On top of the fact that are we incentivizing if you have a bet on this thing happening, are we incentivizing it to happen? That if you're in a position to make it happen, and if it does happen, you profit financially. We're not policing this. Like, we're not watching this. We are in such a danger zone at the moment for all of this. I've been talking about the grifting. I've been talking about what is going on with the prediction marketplaces in America. And we're just asleep at the wheel. We are extremely behind as to where we need to be about the level of damage that this could be doing. And I am somebody that I'm not an alarmist when it comes to sports betting. And, I do not believe that sports gambling is going to cause the destruction of an entire generation of young people. I don't believe any of that. But I do think that there is some real major questions that need to be answered immediately and not wait for the Supreme Court to get involved, because that essentially is what is happening here. And after what happened with the tariffs and the fact that everyone just assumed the Supreme Court was going to rubber stamp the tariffs for the administration, the fact that they did not do that, well, maybe there will be some pushback from the Supreme Court when it comes to prediction marketplaces and saying, you know what, we're not going to allow this because it's not in the letter of the law to allow this. States have a right to dictate this. And Polymarket, namely the state of Utah, as I talked about yesterday, that's going to be the big Kalshi Polymarket fight with prediction marketplaces about you have a state with no gambling, no lottery, nothing. And yet prediction marketplaces are happening. Those bets are being made in Utah, and Utah wants it gone. That's the one state that I think that could bring down the entire country in terms of states' rights. And the second the Supreme Court, if they do rule that way and say Utah has a right to say, here we are, okay, here we are, and we believe that we have a right to dictate what is legal and what is not from a gaming perspective. Supreme Court, you gave us that right. When you appealed PASPA, you said states' rights. And so we said, no, we're not legalizing it. And yet here you come in and you're forcing gambling on our people. Now, I'm speaking of this as if I was the Utah AG here. I don't believe anyone's getting forced into anything, but you know what I mean? They're not down with it. And yet you can use it. It's marketed. It's advertised 50-state solution, including Alabama and Utah. Go right ahead. Use Kalshi. Go bet on Jazz games. Go bet on Utah football in the state of Utah. That is not acceptable to the politicians in Utah. I don't blame them. I don't blame them at all. And the difference, I talked about it yesterday, but the difference between Utah's argument in their fight with Kalshi and versus Nevada, Massachusetts, Maryland, New Jersey, those fights are talking about protecting the sports gambling industry already operating in those states. Utah is saying, we don't want this at all. And you guys are making gambling legal in our state. We don't want gambling in any form legal in our state. We don't have anything. It's the only state without the lottery. Like, they have nothing in Utah. You can't do anything up there. And so now that court case is fascinating because that might get fast-tracked to the Supreme Court. That might be the one case that takes the whole thing down for Kalshi, because it's a state that doesn't, like, there may be some judges that are like, yeah, you're just trying to make sure they pay their taxes, right? Utah is saying, no, we have no interest in any of that. That's not what we're talking about. We don't care about the tax revenue. There is no tax revenue. There is no gaming revenue. There is no gross gaming revenue in Utah. None. Not even the lottery. And so when you see it overseas, if Israeli soldiers are profiting off of insider knowledge on military exercises, don't tell me it's not happening in America. Don't tell me that there aren't military folks doing it now with insider information. We already saw it again with the insider trader over the Venezuela invasion. Somebody knew, somebody bet, and somebody made a ton of money by doing that because they were tipped off to what was going to happen ahead of time. Now, Trump had called the oil companies. He had tipped off other people before it happened. So some people thought, well, maybe it wasn't the military folk. Maybe it wasn't a soldier. But the Israeli case shows you that it is happening, that soldiers are doing it. They are taking the information and they are betting it. So in this country, we better wake up real quick. We better wake up about what we're allowing people to take bets on. And war should never be bet on. Nobody should ever be profiting off of war. Bets off of wars on top of that. If you guys are live, favorite thing about today hits you on the other side. Bets as well for tonight, for the NBA, the NHL, and for college basketball. If you are with us live, don't move. If you're on the replay crew, thank you so much for being here. My thanks to Adam Bjorn and BetCris Arizona for sponsoring BvB. Back for a Friday's edition tomorrow on Sports Grid. The rest of you guys, we got bonus time. Let's go right into it. There's some big games. We talked about Adam already with one of them. Let's talk about games for tonight. Just the picks being presented by the prop bet cheat sheets that can be found from Betting Pros, downloading the Betting Pros app, or go to bettingpros.com/props to find out all their algorithm picks for tonight's prop markets. Let's talk about it. I laid the 13.5. And until further notice, the Spurs have won 10 games in a row. The Spurs have been covering double-digit lines during this run. The Nets are done. The Spurs are on a back-to-back. I'll give you that, but I don't think they care. They're young, they're hungry, and they're just ruining people. I should have bet it last night. I was looking at a big number last night, and instead I bet the under 222. I'm blanking on the game that I bet last night, but it went over at 225. And so this game, I don't want to touch the total. I'm not taking the Nets. I think if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I'm not betting the Nets, not with how good the Spurs have been. This feels like a complete blowout. I'll lay it with San Antonio laying 13.5. The total for this game for Purdue and Michigan has gone up to 142.5. I took over 141.5. I think we're going to see offense. Purdue, even though their pace is not great, they are extremely efficient. And I do know that Michigan State on paper is a very good defensive team, but Michigan State, except for their last game, which went under, the previous 7 games all went over. Michigan State's been playing over games. Purdue at home tends to play over games. I don't want to get involved with a side in this. Thank you. That was Rockets Kings. Thank you. Fell 225 for the Rockets and the Kings. Should have just bet the Rockets. Kings are god awful, but they covered easily that 14.5 point number last night. So I'm go 0-2 on this, but I like over here. I like over 141.5 for Purdue and Michigan coming up here for tonight. And finally in the NHL, under 6 for the Devils and the Penguins. Penguins first game back after the Olympics. They do not have for a month plus Sidney Crosby. Have the goalies been announced for this yet? Let me see this, because I don't really care who's in net, but it does help the bet. Markstrom is expected to play. Good. It's Silvos for the Penguins. That's not awful. It was more about Markstrom. Allen played last night for the Devils. They lost 2-1 against Buffalo. Markstrom hasn't played since the Olympics, but he was awesome. He for Team Sweden, he was great. So I like the fact that it is Markstrom playing in net here. I like unders. Yeah, first game back, unders. It happened. I hit last night with the Devils game last night. Devils were on a back-to-back. That's kind of the only worry there, but it's Markstrom in net, so I do think the under 6. It's 5.5. BetMGM, I think, is the only book I've seen. It's still at 6. Most are at 5.5. I don't hate that, but it feels like a 3-2 final, one way or the other. So Devils Penguins, we're going to go under 6 on that. By the way, speaking of hockey, I just want to point this out. I found this to be hysterical. So last night after the Oilers game, a reporter asked Connor McDavid about what happened in the Olympics. And the question was, Stanley Cups found Gretzky and Crosby and those guys and gold medals. You, meaning Connor McDavid, you've put yourself in position and it's not finding you. Did you think it would be this hard? The answer from Connor McDavid was, that's a nice question. This is a dude. I mean, do you want him to leave? He was just voted the most valuable player and the best forward at the Olympics. He had 13 points in the Olympics. He had 2 goals and 11 assists in 6 games for Team Canada. He broke a record that was shared by Teemu Selanne and Saku Koivu for 11 points in the 2006 Olympic Games. He also tied Joe Sakic with 6 goals and 7 assists in 16 games for the 3rd most points by a Canadian during the Olympics with NHL players, behind Sidney Crosby, who had 6 goals and 9 assists in 17 games, and Jerome Ingigla, how do you say his last name? I forget that guy from the 80s. 10 points and 4 assists in 19 games. We're talking about a first-team All-Star 5 times, NHL rookie team. We're talking about a guy who has set record after record after record, and we're going to be critical of him. The 22nd player to score at least 60 goals in one season. He has scored twice to reach the milestone, including the game winner on a breakaway back in March of 23. He is the 3rd player in Oilers history to score at least 60 goals in a season, joining Gretzky and Curry. He scored 300 goals, his 300th goal back against the Kings on March 30th, becoming the 5th player in the history of the NHL to score 300 goals and have 500 assists prior to his 600th game in the NHL. He joined the likes of Gretzky, Lemieux, Brian Trottier, became the first player in NHL history with 5 10-point streaks in one season. Gretzky had 4 double-digit runs from 1986 to 1987. Like, what are we doing? Like, are we really going to question whether or not Connor McDavid is a good player? Yeah. In Gigla, right? Yeah. I don't know. I'm 48. I should know his name. He's good. Just say that. He's good. Forget the last name. I don't know. I really don't understand how this guy gets the heat that he gets. And in Canada, he's the guy that has never won. He's the best player who's never won. Everyone's going to ask him, Connor McDavid, when are you going to win? When are you going to win? Why haven't you hoisted the cup yet? You've played for the cup. You've had chances, and yet you've never won it. Like it's been his fault. Like, this is not his fault. Not by any means as to what has happened. Is he Gretzky? No. Okay. But he's pretty darn close. Okay. He's pretty darn close. Maybe we want to leave that guy alone. Maybe Connor McDavid's a player that you don't want to be critical of, saying like, why haven't you won a gold medal? Why haven't you won the Stanley Cup? Yikes. Edmonton media. Not good. Favorite thing about today. Can I be petty for a second? I'm going to be petty for a second. Anybody who loses their job, I feel for. Except for maybe this guy. This guy losing his job, I'm not really angry about this. Tony Dungy is out for football night in America. The last time we saw him, it was Rodney Harrison basically embarrassing Tony Dungy for not voting Bill Belichick into the Hall of Fame, and that Tony Dungy was part of that crew that did not put Bill Belichick into the Hall of Fame. And Tony Dungy is liked by certain people, despised by many, and not just people in New England. But in New England, Tony Dungy is basically public enemy number one for a variety of reasons. For what he did with the Colts, for what he has said publicly about Bill Belichick, what he has said about the Patriots, him and Bill Polian. If you ask most Patriot fans as to why Bill Belichick is not in the Hall of Fame, it would be because of Bill Polian and Tony Dungy. So Bill Polian, who is not going to be part of a broadcast anytime soon. Bill Polian's pretty much done with the broadcasting world. You would assume that Tony Dungy equally will be on that track. Well, he will be out. I'm not sad about it. I'm not sad about Tony Dungy. He will not be missed. I think most people feel this way, but Jimmy Football, I'm guessing you may have a fan base that's not a cult attached to it. His brother is my dentist. That's hysterical. Well, you can tell him that his brother getting fired. I feel bad about his brother being fired. I don't like it, but I do like it. I don't hate it, but I do like it. It was time. It was time to have to sit there and listen every time the Patriots played a big game or on prime time. Every single Patriot fan was like, I can tell you what he's going to say before he says it. I don't need to even listen to Tony Dungy because I know what he's going to say because he's completely biased. He did not have any objectivity to him. And frankly, I'm not sure what he brought to the table as a commentator, to be quite honest. He had a great career as a coach. He had an awesome run in Indianapolis. He had a historical career that is worth noting, and he should be sent on off and tip of the cap. Thank you for your service. But him on that show was problematic. It just was problematic. So the announcement that he will not be returning, oh well. Can't say I'm sad. Can't say anybody in New England is all that sad about Tony Dungy. Happy trails. Enjoy retirement. But I'm not mad that you were gone from my television set every Sunday night for Sunday Night Football. We are back tomorrow on a Friday. Thank you to Adam Bjorn for stopping on by on a BetCris Arizona Thursday. Great to catch up with him. If you missed any part of the program, you can always rewatch it on YouTube at Boston versus the Book or listen to it on the audio podcast, wherever you guys get your audio podcast. Please like, subscribe, and help us drive those numbers up. Back tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern time for a Friday's BvB presented by BetCris Arizona.